Hello, distinguished colleagues and guests. Welcome to Congress on Social Science held on November 2021. I thank all academicians who contributed in this event. I would like to share my comments on the concept of obedience that I am working on my PhD thesis. I also would like to emphasize on scale that I'm trying to develop. Firstly, let's go through on fundamentals of obedience. My research is a study on developing the organizational obedience scale based on exploratory and confirmatory factors analysis. Fundamentals. The concept of obedience, which is expressed as a type of behavior within the scope of the various academic research, although it has been the subject of social research in social psychology and sociology, it has been less adopted in organizational studies. Even in the interviews made during the field expert opinion for scale development purposes, it is seen that obedience behavior is not given much importance by human resources managers, so that it is one of the lowest evaluation indicators in employee performance scales. Thus, as obedience, which is thought to be a behavior learned by instinct, is a fact that creates the negative impact of this instinctive learning on organizations where this fact has been ignored. So it's crucial to analyze this phenomena. What's the purpose? Since the destructive aspects of obedience on societies are emphasized in sociology and social psychology, it's necessary to investigate whether there is a destructive aspect in organizations as well. As there is no comprehensive study of organizational obedience in terms of organizational behavior and psychology, it's necessary to bring to the literature a scale development study that can measure the obedience tendencies and levels of the employees of the institution. Reviewing concept of obedience in terms of discipline, especially social psychology. The concept of obedience is one of the social influence behavior that are tried to be explained in the field of social psychology. This concept is referred to as obedience in the literature. The concept of obedience is used to protect social order and prevent chaos so that the individual adapts as a result of the effect of the environment on him or her. Rules and norms that must be followed depending on the law require compliance or obedience. The following topics are discussed in studies in social psychology. Obedience may become uncontrollable in any field. Which direction would it go? In the 21st century world, hazardous dimension of obedience is uncontrollable and destructive. In particular, this subject is a research topic that should be emphasized in terms of displaying the damage it can cause to individuals, groups, organizations, or societies. When the field studies of organizational behavior and organizational psychology are examined, it's not that obedience behavior is similar to types of behavior such as identification and adoption in business life. In field research, it's to note that when conceptual separation is made, it has been determined that obedience has different aspects from other types of behavior. What's meant in this study is the thought of whether a negativity or danger will occur as a result of obedience. In the studies examined, it was noted that particularly obedience to authority has been associated with numerous destructive events over the years. In this study, one of objectives was to develop a scale for organizations by taking the studies on the danger aspect of obedience as a reference. The first reference point before scale development is Milgram experiments. Milgram elaborated two main theories out of the experiments, agency theory and conformism theories. What are theory? Briefly, I will try to explain these theories. According to agency or autonomous theory, the essence of obedience is that a person sees himself or herself as a means to the fulfillment of another person's wishes and doesn't hold herself accountable for her actions, or this phase is regarded to be the process of shifting from the pressure of the role of intermediary to mediator, or following instruction to mediate from one's individual purpose to someone else's purpose. Another approach states that it's the individual's attempt to get rid of the negativity of her immoral behaviors by attributing the responsibility of her behavior to someone other than herself, and doing this with a tendency to change her area of responsibility. Conformism theory, for example, if an individual in an environment of uncertainty does not have any relevant experience and doesn't have sufficient knowledge, he or she leaves the decision to the opinion of the group she is in, or to the person whom she considers superior. Milgram examined the mass Holocaust, especially the Eichmann trial and Arendt research on the subject, and carried out a series of experiments in the laboratory environment. As a result of all his evaluations, he developed these theories. In the Milgram experiment, 40 participants were told they were going to contribute a study about punishment and learning, but the actual focus was on how long they would listen to and obey orders from the experimenter. The participants were instructed that they had to shock a person in another room for every wrong answer on a learning task. Let's look at one figure, if you want. And the shocks increased with intensity for each wrong answer. If participants questioned the procedure, the researcher would encourage them to continue. The Milgram study found that participants would obey orders even when it posed severe harm to others. The shocks started at a relatively mild level, 15 volts, but increased in 15-volt increments up to 450 volts. Actually, the shocks were fake, but the participant was led to believe they were real. You have no other choice. You must go on. The study ended when participants refused to obey the experimenter's demand, or when they gave the learner the highest level of shock on the machine. Milgram found that participants obeyed the experimenter at an unexpectedly high rate 65% of the participants gave the learner the 450-volt shock. Yes. Other research on obedience, there are various laboratory obedience experiments. The Holland, for example, Holland experiments, mental experiments, Kill-Man experiments, etc. Also obedience experiments outside the laboratory. There are various studies. The similarity between laboratory and naturally occurring situations, Eichmann trial, and Zimbardo-Stanford experiment. What are factors affecting obedience? Shortly, let me look at environment. There are environmental factors, individual factors, and organizational factors. Power of authority, a person's responsibility, knowledge level, size of the group in the environment, group loyalty, the influence of position and prestige, especially the effect of being face-to-face, loss of personality, the influence of the minority. Individual factors are effects of ego, the need for individuality, desire for personal control, responsibility, etc. And organizational factors are collectivist culture, individualistic culture, etc. Literature research for obedience scale. Shortly, even though it's a few, this concept is included in organizational citizenship researches, which are frequently applied for field studies after current developments, especially the concept of obedience, which is explained by the subdimension of the organizational citizenship scale, was brought to the literature by Dine. One line, yes. Expressions describing obedience were determined in several scales based on authoritarian personality and leadership scales.
Sayın hocam, çok özür dileyerek son 3 dakikanız olduğunu belirtmek isterim. Sırada bir sunum daha var.
Peki. Of course. Research questions. Why does one weigh the benefits of obedience? Should obedience have a limit? How far? What factors can affect obedience? I would like to explain methodology, creating an item pool, and then 80 statements as a result of expert opinion about a person. Content, superficial and content validity, 7 Likert degree, draft scale form with 67 items of obedience and social desirability with 1 dimension added. First pilot, and then with retest application, and then second pilot study. After that, sampling and data collection. Number of samples, first and second pilot, 128 person and 230 person, 13 person, 67 statement, 67 statement, yes. Sample, a sample, 31 statement and 515 persons. Consists of white-collar employees working in the fields of health, finance, industry, and academics working in universities in the Marmara region with small and medium-sized scales using simple random sampling method. Firstly, pilot reliability statistic Cronbach alpha is 0.91. The following table shows Cronbach alpha reliability analysis of the obedience scale. Thus, it would be true to say that the reliability of the data is a highly reliable level. According to the table, the effects of an item belonging to the obedience scale on the total correlation were examined. Since the items below 0.30 affect the reliability negatively. Yes, a second pilot, for example, Kaiser-Meyer Olkin, 0.85. It's enough. Number 550, Cameo, Kaiser-Meyer Olkin measure 0.89. It's very good in my opinion. In this slide, we look at factor 5 dimension. Every dimension is item number, factor 1, 9, factor 2, 8, factor 3, 3 item, factor 4, 8 item, and factor 5, 3 item. Cronbach alpha is very good according to literature. And then Amos, according to Amos output, first level confirmatory analysis and second level confirmatory analysis, we may look at these figures. And goodness of fitting confirmatory values of the organizational obedience scale for 550 persons. Values obtained first level 27 item and second level 23 item. Goodness of fit values is enough. Brown and Kadek, Hu and Bentler are referenced. As a conclusion, organizational obedience, blind, destructive, crime, unquestioned, coercive dimensions five subdimensions were determined to explain the latent variable of organizational obedience. Blind obedience is shortly when people, regardless of whether they believe what they are doing is morally, ethically, or legally right, do what they are told. Destructive obedience include especially soldiers obeying orders to attack civilians. Crime of obedience results from the tendency of ordinary people to commit illegal, immoral, or unethical acts against others when ordered by someone in authority. Unquestioning obedience is total and given without thinking, asking questions or doubting. And coercive dimension is obedience to threatening instructions that if the given directive is not followed, someone else will be exposed to negative consequences. Migrants, empirical research or other researches reveal the importance of authority needed by organization. It's possible that the facts and problems about the organizations are hidden by the silence of the employees and the behavior of obedience. Focusing on these issues, organizations should give importance to consider and harmonize the attitudes of the employees, with the organizational norms rather than their behavior. In particular, personal traits are thought to reflect clues about attitudes. Lastly, it's possible to say that the cognitive level of people increases due to the long working years, and it's noted that experience has an effect to enable the process to be carried out at a rational level. It has been determined that factors such as the ability to make effective decisions and manage emotions are effective factors. Professionalism, which is closely related to ethical codes, has an ethical autonomy aspect where there exists accountability. This aspect provides a circumstance in which a person may refrain from making defensive statements such as "I was not there" or "I was following others" when there is a negative result outcome on a task. Otherwise, these expressions will spread like a contagious disease. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.